Can you simplify some of the key concepts involved in how you come up with the company's valuation?
Actually, if you go by Warren Buffett's valuation of the company, he says, I don't know what they teach in the business schools. I can teach somebody in an hour. That's what Warren Buffett says all the time. And the valuation of a company is nothing but is cash flows, future cash flows discounted to today's value, present value. That's what it is. So if the company is valued 10 billion and it's making $1 billion a year, that'll be discounted for foreseeable future to today's value. And that's what it'll come to. Now, of course, then there are the finer details of what is cash flow and what is operating cash flow and investing cash flow. But essentially it is that's what the amount of cash the company is going to generate, and that's what it's worth. The analyst community looks into the proxy statements and the income statement and takes into account all the details and the risks, and they'll compare it to the industry and understand that if a company may be making $1 billion in this year, what is the likelihood that it's going to make 1.1 or 1 or less in the future years? Despite what they say, because they also talk about the risk, they look at the industry. Is it a growth industry? Is it a consolidating industry? It's a shrinking industry with a lot of threats of new customers. I mean, just to take an example, not too long ago, if I go back only 5 years, BlackBerry, RIM, that's the name of the company, they were valued something like $70 billion or something. Today it's worth almost nothing. And they had market share, I believe 85% market share of the enterprise business. And they wouldn't change as a result to a keyless smartphone. But they lost out. And people who were valuing the company, they were looking at their cash flow statements and projecting it for more years than was possible. So the extraneous view which needed to be applied to it was, what were the threats to this company, this business? The companies just went off. It's like Motorola in the cell phone business. I mean, if you just look at recent history, you don't have to go more than 10 years, you'll find tens of companies who were leading stars in valuation and today are worth almost nothing.
So specifically for some of these companies, you think it was an outside voice, an outside analyst, an outside expert that should have been called in that wasn't? Is that where they failed to see what was coming?
I think there is one more factor which happens. Success creates arrogance. And most successful CEOs find it hard to contain that arrogance. And in the process, they become insular from the industry. Even though the experts tell them, they find a way to rationalize against it. Everyone is telling BlackBerry that there is enterprise and there are consumers. Individuals work in the enterprise. If they like Apple, it's only a matter of time. But people are not willing to listen to that voice. I mean, you can apply this to Yahoo, you can apply this to so many companies, you can apply this to Wells Fargo. It's not that Wells Fargo didn't know that this was going on. When we were working in the different banks, and there was in JP Morgan Chase or Citi or First National Bank, regulators used to tell us, why can't you have a better cross-sell ratio like Wells Fargo? And we knew what Wells Fargo was doing. And we couldn't come to do it. And Wells Fargo was touting it in every forum that, look, our cross-sell ratio is 8 accounts per individual. And we knew how difficult it is to go beyond 3 or 4 without doing other stuff. So in that case, chairman and CEO is the same person in the banks, and they're resisting it. The board was comfortable with the performance. The company was doing great. Stock price was great. Revenues are coming in. Customer feedback was being shared. Customer satisfaction was high. These are all tools to prove your own proposition. You always need a voice of dissent. And sometimes that voice of dissent is not heard. So a few times that I've been, chairman of the board, or even in businesses, if I chair, I always look for the voice of dissent. And it's so important to hear that. And sometimes that is missed. I mean, I'm not saying people do this intentionally, but it does get missed. And it can have very serious consequences, as you can see with Wells Fargo.